What should investors worry most about in global politics for 2013? Here to talk about a few of those things is David Gordon of the Eraser Group. David, emerging markets for a while now on Wall Street have been considered just kind of an instrument to play the economic outlook globally, but you say don't overlook maybe re-emerging political and policy risks. What's your take right now in emerging markets?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's been happy that the emerging markets have been out there the last 5 years, but if you look at the emerging markets over the next couple of years, I think that the outlook is much more mixed. I mean, some of them keep doing okay, but there's a lot more downside risk. Both China and India are likely to not have bad growth stories this year, but it's going to be harder and harder to invest into them. Politically, they're both facing some real headwinds, and I think that in general we're looking at, really for the first time in several years, a lot more differentiation rather than risk on, risk off. There's going to be a lot more differentiation in the emerging markets.
And in terms of that differentiation, you do have a kind of a class of emerging markets that do seem more stable, that do seem kind of well on their way toward developed market status. Which would those be?
Yeah, so I think in Latin America, we remain pretty bullish on Brazil, on Colombia, on Mexico, in Asia, on Philippines. We think South Korea recovers pretty nicely. Burma for investors is going to be a big opportunity. In Africa, Mozambique and Ghana. I mean, the two big African countries, Nigeria and South Africa, really not so good, although the whole Africa story, I think, is going to be a big story for investors over the next several years.
All right, you mentioned China, how it might be tough for political reasons for investors to get comfortable there. Exactly what is their main challenge right now? You talk about how the information war in China being paramount.
Yeah, I think that you know, China has these hundreds of millions of middle-class consumers now. They're all on the Chinese equivalent of Facebook called Weibo, and they want a lot more information freedom, but the government doesn't like information freedom. I mean, there have been all of these reports ever since the Bo Xilai affair last summer, all of these reports highlighting the extraordinary wealth of the top ranks of the Communist Party, and the leadership is really afraid of this. So they're tightening up on information, but more importantly, they're really promoting nationalism. And nationalism in China is generating a defensive nationalism in Japan and Southeast Asia. So the Pacific region, which is a part of the world that had always put commerce and economics above geopolitics, that's in real danger now. So we're focusing on that China, there's no good legal system, so internally firms are going to be at risk from local competitors, and then there's going to be a lot more geopolitical tension across the region. So the China growth story is still there, but it becomes much less a win-win situation both for the neighbors and for investors from overseas.
All right, David, and just to turn it back home a little bit, obviously we've been all consumed with what's happening in D.C., in the fiscal budget standoff and everything else. Exactly how should that be integrated into an investor's view of, the potential policy risks?
Yeah, I mean, I think here in the United States, on the one hand, a lot of good things are happening. The housing market's turning up, corporates are in great shape, so I don't want to say that the outlook is negative. It's not. But I think we're in for just a year of real political dysfunction, continued brinksmanship between the president and the Republicans in Congress, and that's going to put downward pressure on growth. I think we're going to face big uncertainty on where the tax code's going, but I think the Republicans, unless the president agrees to enlarge the problem and really find a way to engage the Republican leadership, we're going to be in a series of brinksmanship situations over the debt ceilings because the Republicans are going to continue to give the president small bites. So it's really in the president's hands now, and I look to him hopefully to make some positive statements either in the inaugural address or the State of the Union. But if not, some downward pressure, although the overall outlook for the U.S. is still pretty positive.
All right, we'll have to be listening to that speech then. Thank you very much, David Gordon.